Welcome to episode 247 of the DFO Rundown, brought to you by Betano, 19 plus. Please play responsibly. And man, you got lots of options right now. Of course, Thursday night football. Maybe you got Frankie's Phillies, who just keep dominating. Look at what the spread could be. There's lots of opportunities at betano.ca. And right now, Frank, the city of Philadelphia has got to be rolling again as the Phillies. Man, there's something about that team. They got to be fun to watch.
Insanely likable team. That's the easiest way to say it. They mash home runs. They've got energy and personality, and being 7-1 in the postseason doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, them and the Rangers. Rangers finally had their first loss last night against Houston. They've been 7-0. So I'm rooting for Phillies and Rangers. Something tells me that the D-backs will at least win a game here.
Yeah, Phillies in 5.
Yeah, I don't see them getting swept at all, but we shall see. Lots in the hockey world to discuss. I guess it's early. It's very early, but Alex DeBrincat loves playing in his home state. He's got 8 points now, 5 goals. So whatever wasn't working in Ottawa is clearly working in Detroit.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier this week, and it probably caught a few people by surprise. And when I first heard it myself, I was a little bit surprised. But keep an eye on the Detroit Red Wings when it comes to Patrick Kane and where he ends up signing to play. They were one of 3 teams that I mentioned, including the Rangers and also his hometown Buffalo Sabres, which I think there's certainly mutual interest there. But the Red Wings part of it was kind of predicated purely on the idea of getting a chance to play with Alex DeBrincat again. And I think what's amazing about the start of this season, you always have some things that are either statistical anomalies or, things that will end up coming back to norms. But when you look at this year and you look at teams that are off to hot starts offensively, Detroit is right up there at the top of the list in terms of goals scored.
Yep. Yeah, they've give him credit, man. They're up to a great start. And DeBrincat is his loving life there much more than he ever was in Ottawa, which
second only to the Carolina Hurricanes to this point in goals scored.
Yeah, well, the Hurricanes got to score a lot of goals, Frank, because they're giving up a ton. It's mind-blowing when you look at the Hurricanes, because last year they averaged 26 shots against per game, which was best in the league. And this year, it's early in the year. They're at 25.3, but their goalies can't make a save. They're leaking goals all over the place, and Freddie Anderson and Antti Raanta. And I will say, I went and looked at Raanta and Anderson over the last 3 years, Frank, and it's been a steady decline. I wonder when we're going to see the young goalie who's got a 4-year deal at $2 million, who's currently playing in the minors.
No, he actually got called up yesterday.
There you go. So that's what I was going to say. Freddie Anderson, you saw it. He took one right in the melon in that game.
Yeah, Pyotr Kochetkov. Look, that's the one thing you can count on. It's death, taxes, and one of the Canes' 2 goalies being injured for a chunk of the season.
Yes.
Go look at the numbers. There's a reason why they've used Kochetkov so much since he was like 20 years old. It's because one of their guys is always hurt. They're human Band-Aids.
Yeah, and honestly, their numbers have diminished every year the last few years. And so I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get a lot of starts here moving forward for Carolina, because they're not giving up a lot of shots. They're not giving up a ton of quality chances. They're just giving up a lot of goals.
They're both 34 years old too. 34 with significant injury histories.
Yeah.
So it's a good reason to sign Kochetkov to a 4-year deal times $2 million. That thing is going to be a bargain in short order.
Yeah.
Next season, full-time NHL starter.
Another player to watch for, Frank, who's off to a good start. And I saw the Pittsburgh players, and rightfully so, I think, were somewhat perturbed that Evgeny Malkin, who was 26th in league scoring last year, somehow wasn't in the top 100 player list of ESPN, which I'd love them to describe.
Wait, he got smacked on the top 100 again?
Yes.
It wasn't the top 100 of all time, which the NHL did a few years ago, which is crazy that
ESPN did a thing about top 100 this year, and he wasn't in it.
That's banana.
Yeah, like Evgeny Malkin, like at his
he was
age,
north of a point per game last year.
I know, he had 83 points last year. He's 26th in the league, and he's off to a really good start again. That whole line in Pittsburgh, man, that line's dominant. But Malkin's got 7 points, and in 4 games. He's currently tied with Draisaitl for second place behind
the mayor of Nashville.
And yeah, hey, that honestly, that is mind blowing to see one player dominate like that. Like it's well, there's no one in the NHL who's an active player who is averaging a goal a game, 20 plus games against one franchise. Like no one other than Draisaitl, who's 24 and 24.
It's actually insane. And my favorite part about it is that Draisaitl hates it. Hates being asked about it. His teammates give him a hard time. I went through the numbers yesterday, and there's some pretty impressive totals against individual teams. Alex Ovechkin, for instance, he's got 19 goals in 21 games against the Wild. That's the closest. Austin Matthews, pretty good against the Vancouver Canucks, 18 and 21. There's been some amazing ones with some longevity. For a while, it was Alex Ovechkin, 41 goals in 50 games against the Maple Leafs, which is crazy. He's now gone 6 straight games without scoring against the Leafs. But there's some other guys who are in that sort of conversation. Sidney Crosby, 53 goals in 83 games played against the Flyers. So he has more than 50 goals and has played more than a full regular season against the Philadelphia Flyers.
Yeah, Ovi's got 53 and 71 games against the Atlanta Winnipeg franchise. Pasternak's got 24 in 28 games. But one of the all-time great ones was Wayne Gretzky had 60 goals in 69 games against the Kings before he got traded to them.
Maybe that's why they traded for him.
Yeah.
Sick of getting slapped around.
Yeah.
Here's the oddity part of this, okay? Do you know what Leon Draisaitl's goal total is against the Calgary Flames?
10
in 41 games. So he's got more than double that against the Preds in half the number of games.
Yeah. Well,
good luck explaining it.
Yeah. Well, against the Flames, that's who McDavid feasts on. McDavid, I think, has 29 goals in 37 games versus the Flames. He likes playing them. The thing about Draisaitl is, he's got 24 and 24, but he had 2 in his first 12, Frank. He's got 22 goals in his last 12 games.
That's
34 points in his last 12 games against the Preds. And that's like a lot of those games are UC Saros and Pekka Rinne, for goodness sakes.
And Tyler and all of his degenerate buddies were all saying, hey, got to bet Draisaitl to score against the Preds. They were all over it.
Well, there was actually one place that didn't give you the option for him to score 1 goal.
Oh, we only care about Patano here.
Yeah, exactly. So, but think about it. When you have betting places, Frank, that won't allow you to bet on a player to score a goal, like think about that. That's crazy.
But why would you take why would you take the action if you know it's going to happen?
Yeah, but still, like, you don't know it's going to happen, but because it's still, even though he has 22 and 12 games, 2 of those games he didn't actually score a goal. So there is a chance. Obviously very low, but that is one of the oddities early on for sure around the National Hockey League. Some disappointing news around the league. It happens all the time. Some serious injuries. Kirby Dach is done for the year. And if you watch that play, Frank, did you see the hit on the boards? Like it looked like he rode up and he's up on the bench for anybody who didn't see it. Like it's just unfortunate because it didn't look like his knee twisted or anything crazily.
Yeah, you get something all the time that looks innocuous that turns out to be serious.
Yeah. And
it's just tough for him because he was off to such a good start. He looked really good. Like you watch the games and he looked like someone who was ready to take a giant leap this year. I was expecting 50 plus points this year for Kirby Dach. And just tough news. Tough to, it now becomes, starting in training camp next year. It's a lot to come back from.
Oh, it's brutal. Like I look at Connor Brown in Edmonton, who basically played 4 games last year, almost identical to Dach, and then did not play again, injured his knee. And it's only been 3 games, but he looks like a guy who's missed a full calendar year, right? Like
his timing, he's had a million glorious opportunities that his timing he can't get it down.
No. So it's odd. There are a few things. I was looking through right now. There's only 4 teams who haven't lost a game. And some of them have only played, like we're down, like teams are playing 3 and 4 games. Like
How about the Chicago Blackhawks still haven't played a home game yet?
I know.
The Connor Bedard barnstorming tour rolls on in Colorado, one of those teams that hasn't lost a game, Thursday night before they finally get home on Saturday against the Vegas Golden Knights. Nice little treat. You get the defending Cup champs after all the tough teams that you played to this point. But yeah, think about that. Every other team in the league has played at least one home game.
Well, no, is tonight the Panthers home game, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yeah, I think so. But you're like, they don't play because they're in Colorado. And then like it's almost like the league said, okay, we got Connor Bedard. We're going to try to showcase him to everyone. And he's in Chicago, or sorry, he's in Toronto, he's in Montreal, he's in Colorado, and then he's going to face the defending champs. Like it almost seems like that schedule was made strictly for TV.
Well, all 5 of the first road games were all on national TV in the US.
Yeah.
So I don't think you're wrong.
Yeah. And you saw Taylor Hall thinking that, hey, maybe it's a little bit too much, like give the guy a break. So
come on. You either, I already did this rant like 9 times. You can't suck and blow at the same time. You either want to grow the game and you want it to be bigger than it is and you put in the work, or you're just completely happy being a $6 billion industry and moving on. Can't have it both ways. This is the most exciting talent to enter the league since Austin Matthews. I've said before, people say, oh, too much attention on one 18-year-old kid. Why? In short order, I'm telling you, the only player better in the league will be Connor McDavid. That's how good he is.
Yeah, but he's not there yet. So maybe
but it doesn't matter. He's 18 and these are his first steps into the NHL. And watch the game closely. We had an unreal breakdown from John Goyens on the Coaches Room on Daily Faceoff Live earlier this week. The things that Connor Bedard is already doing, he'd have a pile more points. His teammates literally are not ready for it because they were not expecting him to make some of these moves. That's how good he's been.
Yeah. Oh, I've watched it. I have no problem with him, but I could see maybe all 5 games. Maybe you mix in a Matthews or a McDavid or somewhere in there. I can see why they might say that. So, but Chicago, hey, they've been competitive, man. Their Grizzly veterans have chipped in when needed, which I think was a smart move by Chicago. You have to protect your young players with some veterans around them. I'm not saying Chicago's making the playoffs, but they don't look like the free space in the bingo card.
They're definitely not. And I'll tell you who's been really good, Corey Perry.
Yeah.
We were having this debate the other day on Twitter. Is Corey Perry a Hall of Famer? First gut reaction.
God, it's a really good question, Frank. I think he will eventually become a Hall of Famer. He's not a first ballot, but I think he eventually will get in when you look at his career totals.
I initially was like, no. First gut reaction, probably not. And it's actually not his totals that are going to get him in because they're not really that impressive. He's played 1,261 games, 887 points. There's a lot of players out there with way more impressive compilations than that. 1,000-point scorers that are not in a similar number of games. He's got the Hart Trophy. He's got the Rocket Richard. And I think the other part is he's won almost literally everything you could possibly win in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
His trophy case is full. Like, name something that he hasn't won. Good luck. It's insane. I love pulling up his elite prospects page and checking it out. World Junior, Olympic Gold, Memorial Cup, OHL, Stanley Cup. Go through the list. It's insane. World Championship, Triple Gold Club, World Cup of Hockey. There's nothing he hasn't won.
Yeah, and I think now, some of those guys with 1,000 points played in higher scoring eras, so that'll factor in a little bit. I do think that, his ability to, he's just noticeable. I think it's not always with points, right? He scores some very timely goals, but I think it's his style of play. He's a 50 goal scorer, right? His nickname's the Worm, and it could be the Rat.
He should be in the Hall of Fame just for the nickname,
right? Like I think it's his style of play, Frank, that to me, one of the big things coaches and everybody will tell players is get noticed. And you know what? That could be with a big hit. It could be being engaged. It could be obviously a goal, a big block shot. And Corey Perry, most of the time, finds a way to get noticed, and you know that he's involved in the game. And I think that's what will help him when it comes to the voters.
I think he's pretty excited. Caught up with him a bit after the game in Pittsburgh last week. He's pretty excited to be in Chicago, and this is giving him a little shot in the arm, I think, being around Bedard.
Well, yeah. And the fact he's getting 4 times more than he was the last 2 years.
Yeah, he's made
That's
$100
always
million. I don't think he cares.
Yeah, it's always nice. It's a nice bonus. So, but yeah, being around a young guy like that, I'm sure it's pretty exciting. But he's played with some really good players in his career.
He's played on some really good teams.
Yeah.
So, almost consistently has had a shot to win the Stanley Cup here the last number of years. He's played he played like 75 playoff games in the last 3 years prior to Tampa's first round exit. Crazy total.
The guy plays a ton of playoff games, man. Frank, we're going to play a fun little game today, and I'm curious about you and the listeners, and we'll see how many of our listeners know their team. All right, I'm not going to go through every team because I'll post all of it in an article I'm writing later today. But Leon Draisaitl had set the Oilers franchise record. And anytime you set a franchise record for a team that had Wayne Gretzky and he scored 1,600 and whatever it was, 69 points in Edmonton, you're in pretty good company. So he scored his 127th and 128th career power play goals against Nashville. So that is now the Oilers franchise high. What's interesting is his 128, if you look at all 32 teams, and obviously, Seattle and Vegas are going to be the last two because they've only been around for a short period of time. And then even like the Floridas and Nashville, some other expansion teams. But anyway, the Edmonton Oilers, of the 32 NHL teams, his 128 goals on the power play are tied with Shane Doan, who owns the Arizona record / Winnipeg Jets, with 128. That's 21st overall. There's a lot of guys with way more power play goals. Obviously at the top. Did you know Ovi's next power play goal? And by the way, first time in his career, he's gone 2 games without a shot on net, Frank. How about that?
Yeah, that is a stat.
Yes. 2 consecutive games, no shots on goal for Alex Ovechkin. Not even a shot on net. That's mind-blowing for him. But anyway, Ovi's next power play goal will be his 300th power play goal, for God's sakes.
That's the all-time record, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, Dave Andreychuk was in the 280s, right?
274.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a record, but not by a crazy margin. Yeah.
But it's also by one team, right? Like the most goals.
Right.
Like Dave Andreychuk owns Buffalo's record with 161.
So Ovi also already owns most total goals by any player with one team.
Yeah, I think he passed Gordie Howe, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Gordie Howe played for a few different teams.
Yeah, well, Detroit mainly, right?
Right. His total with Detroit is 786.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. He just passed him. He's the closest one.
All right. So let's play the game.
So if I asked you who owns the most power play goals in LA Kings history?
Esa Tikkanen.
LA Kings?
I don't know.
Luke Robitaille.
Okay.
210.
That's the first name I thought of, but I'm just thinking it's probably not going to be the most obvious.
Yeah, no, some of these are obvious, but 210, which is the third most, right? Mario, if I would have asked you Pittsburgh, I think you would have guessed it, so I skipped them. They're second. The Detroit Red Wings.
Gordie Howe?
Yes, 209. And there's only one other franchise that has a player with 200 or more power play goals for their team, Colorado / Quebec.
Okay. Joe
Sakic, 205. Steven Stamkos is 5 goals shy of 200 for Tampa on the power play, and he could become the 6th guy with a franchise to have 200 power play markers. But here's one that I'm not going to give you the answer. I want people to know an original 6 team that their franchise leader, it's funny, as long as the Rangers have been around, they've never really had a dominant power play scorer because their franchise record, Frank, is 116 goals. They've been around forever, right? They're one of the original 6 teams. They rank 24th. Do you know who owns the Rangers record for most power play goals?
I don't.
Yeah.
Who is it?
I want Ranger fans, if any of them know this, if you're listening to the pod and you're yelling out the name right now, I give you massive credit.
Jean
Because
Rattel?
honestly, I think there's going to be some people that might not even remember this gentleman unless you're a diehard Ranger fan. He played in the 50s and early 60s with the Rangers. Nobody since has scored more power play goals for the New York
Almost
Rangers.
no one alive listening to this pod watched this guy live.
Fair, right? Like, honestly, of all the names when I was making this list, Frank, I was just like, who? And I hate saying that because he had a pretty good career, but he played in a time, and I, you know me, I know a lot of stats. I read up on a lot of guys, but I had not heard of Camille Henry for the New York Rangers.
There you go.
He
The
played
problem
for
with the
them.
Rangers guys is none of them were really there long enough to do it.
Wow. It
Like
shows
Phil
you. That, yeah.
Esposito wasn't there long enough to set the record.
Do you know who owns the Bruins record?
There's been some pretty long tenured guys. Is it Phil Esposito?
No, Ray Bourque.
Oh, I could see that.
Yeah, D-man played 1,518 games. He has 157 power
He
play
had
goals.
more than 1,500 points. So
yeah, he has more power play goals than Mike Modano had in Dallas, who had 156.
does
And
that
then one
include
last
Minnesota as well?
Yeah, just it's for the franchise, right? And then the last one other one for the original 6 that I like, Frank, Chicago Blackhawks, because they've had a lot of good players.
So you said the Rangers record was only 116.
Yep.
Phil Esposito had 82 in just 6 years with the Rangers.
Yep. So the Chicago Blackhawks, last one for original 6 teams. Most power play goals in franchise history.
The Golden Jet.
Nope. Steve Larmer.
Huh.
Think about Denny Savard, Stan Mikita, Hull, Patrick Kane. Like, they've had a lot of really good players who played there a long time. But Mr. Steve Larmer, 153, and he only played 891 games. For not only
Bobby Hull had 152.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, it's close, but it was Steve Larmer.
Wow.
So, yeah. So those are fun little trivia for any Ranger fans. Sit around a bar in New York and just you could crush people on that one all day long because it's hard to look up. So Camille Henry. There you go.
There you go.
Let's bring in Ty Yaremchuk.
All right, guys, I'm locked and loaded with a new edition of Buy or Sell, and it is brought to you by our friends at DoorDash. Don't let the holidays get ahead of you. If you're running out of time to run errands and do everything you need to do to throw the big party you agreed to, let DoorDash be your savior. DoorDash can help you out. They can be your holiday hack. Get your groceries, meals, and more delivered right to your door. And for a limited time, our listeners can get 25% off and 0 delivery fees on their first order of $15 or more when they download the DoorDash app and enter the code Nation25, all caps on that, Nation25. It is at the top of your screen if you're watching on YouTube. Let's dig into it. You guys talked about Alex Ovechkin, the fact that he has been held shotless in back-to-back games. I've honestly been surprised at how slow Ovi looks out of the gates here for the Capitals. Are you buying or selling on him as a 50-goal scorer this year, Frank?
Selling hard.
Hard.
Yeah. Look, can he score in bunches to get there? Yes. But he also, it's been a couple years since he got to 50. And last year he got to 42, and it felt like he sort of ran out of gas in the last, few weeks of the season. He's 38. I'd say he's pretty comfortably in the high 30s. If he gets to 42 again, I think that would leave him 30 left to tie Gretzky the following season. He's 72 away, if I'm not mistaken, from tying. It's really such a manageable number now, but it feels like it's going to be a slog to get there.
Yeah, I didn't have him as a 50-goal man to start the year, and I'm not going to change on that. 50's hard, man. Like, this guy's one of the greatest goal scorers ever. He's already done it like 9 times. And there was a few years due to shortened seasons that he was on pace to do it. Obviously, most notably in 20 when they shut down with 10 games to go, because he would have made it that year too. So I don't see him at 50. I actually don't see him at 40.
Wow. Yeah, I may be still a little bit more optimistic then. Over the last 3 years, he's scored at a 48 goal pace. I thought maybe this Capitals team would be better. I think he can get to the mid 40s, maybe in that 44, 46 range if he were to get on a heater. We know he can score in bunches.
I didn't want to say this part too loudly, but I don't think the Caps are very good.
Oh,
no.
6-1 slapping by the Ottawa Senators. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just not seeing it this year for the Caps.
By the way, shout out to Josh Norris, man. For him to come back first game, 2 goals and assist. He looked really good. That's a big boost for the Ottawa Senators.
Hey, that ties into my next question. Healthy Josh Norris. I'm looking at that Senators forward group and I'm like, man, they are young. They are talented. Maybe I should have been higher on the Sens heading into the year. Ottawa is a playoff team with a healthy Josh Norris. Gregor, buy or sell?
Oh, well, I didn't have them in to start the year, and I'm not going to go overboard reaction off of a good start. So I'm still going to – I think they're close. I think the East is very tight. I think there's going to be a few teams just like last year that missed the playoffs by 1 point. And I will still have the Senators as that team. I hope I'm wrong for Sens fans, but I don't have them in.
I'll tell you what, I'm with you, but starting 3-1 is such a big change for this team that it's only 4 games and things can still go sideways in the first 12 to 15, but it feels different and they've given themselves a chance. The last few years, they've gotten it together, and it wasn't until December that they did so. And then after that, they were fine. If they could just hit the ground running this year and stay in the mix, they're gonna give themselves a real chance to get there.
Yeah. Early in the season, but when you look at the goal scoring leaderboard in the NHL, there are a couple of surprising names in the top. We'll call it the top 9 guys who have at least 4 goals on the year. Kreider, Rust, Teravainen, Brandon Hagel, I would have in the surprise category as well. Brandon Hagel in Tampa, 4 goals in 4 games to start the year, all of them at even strength as well. Brandon Hagel, does he have 40 goal potential in your eyes, Frank, buy or sell?
Oof. It's a good question. It feels like a lot.
It does.
4
in 4 games. Like, it's just so interesting at this point in the year, like when guys set themselves up to just knock out so many of them early. And then it's like, okay, you actually only need to score like a 35 goal pace going forward.
Yeah, I think he can get there. There's a lot of talent around him in Tampa. He hit 30 last year. 30 wasn't that big of a jump from his previous career high, which was 25. And he did that on a pretty bad Chicago team, at least most of the heavy lifting that year. He's armed with a new contract, which will certainly help. That was a whopper of a deal for a guy that was really just such a late bloomer. And, we've talked about him, Jay, from his time in Red Deer. My only question about him not getting to 40 is, will he get enough power play opportunity to do that?
That's fair. Greg?
Fair question about the power play goals, because it's hard to score that much 5-on-5. And now Stamkos is out for a bit, so or has been out. Maybe that helps. But the thing about Brandon Hagel is, I watched him a lot in Red Deer. He is a highly competitive guy. To me, he's a similar type player to Braden Point in just his competitiveness. I don't think he's as naturally skilled as Braden Point, but I liked Hagel a lot. And you know what? In his junior year, and his foot speed was a little bit of an issue, but he has gotten quicker. He's highly competitive, and he scored 25 goals 2 years ago. He scored 30 goals last year, his first year in Tampa Bay. I think he gets more comfortable. Coach knows him. Yeah, I think he's definitely got 40 goal potential there. You're around Point, Kucherov, and Stamkos, and Frank makes a great point about the power play. But I think Hagel will find a way to get 40 goals, because when some of those guys aren't there, he's going to get power play time.
If you had said to Brandon Hagel 3 seasons ago, after playing 52 games for the Hawks, that he would sign an 8-year, $52 million contract, his head probably would have exploded.
Oh,
Yeah.
The first year of his deal next year is going to pay him more in 1 year than the first 4 seasons of his career by a very wide margin.
Good
That's
for
pretty
him.
I
crazy.
love that story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you know that Tampa, that's why I wouldn't put 40 past him, is you know that Tampa doesn't sign deals like that unless they have really good evidence that this guy is going to be something for a while. They wouldn't get out in front of it to try and reap the value of it.
Yeah, and the crazy part is, like, even on his next deal, 6.5 million, I think it's fine. But this year, 1.5 million, there's probably not a better non-ELC value contract in the league, right? Like, I can't think of anyone who's gonna outperform their cap hit more than Brandon Hagel.
But that's why people, when the trade took place, people were slamming the Lightning, saying, why would you give up 2 first-round picks? Well, you gave up 2 first-round picks because you had multiple years of Brandon Hagel at 1.5 that made the value worth it.
And they're late round picks too. It's not like they're top 10s.
Yeah, they're late round picks, and it just makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. All right, boys, there you go. That is a wrap on this week's edition of Buy or Sell, delivered by our friends at DoorDash.
By the way, that 1 pick, because the Lightning bowed out in the first round last year, that 1 pick did end up being number 19, which actually is probably better for the Blackhawks than they were probably thinking. And I know they're really happy to get their hands on Oliver Moore.
Chris Kreider is an interesting one. He scored 50 goals a few years ago, Frank. And, where he was dominant. We talked earlier about power play guys in New York. He had obviously the greatest single season as a New York Ranger on the power play a few years ago. And what do you make of the Rangers? Where like, I had them 3rd in their division. I think they're good. I don't think they're great. Where do you come out on the Rangers?
So we both had the Rangers in the same spot. I think we flip-flopped Canes and Devils ahead of them, but we both had both those teams there, and then the Rangers 3rd. I think the Rangers could be really good. I think the issue is really kind of the unknown of this year with the coaching change is I think they needed to change the way they played. There was way too much opportunity for the opposition. They didn't play well enough in their own end. And it's interesting because, yeah, Peter Laviolette's teams have generally been pretty disciplined, but he's pretty offensive minded at times when it comes to how his team plays. They've got the horses to be, I think, like when you check all the positional boxes the way that they do, Shesterkin, Norris Trophy winner on the back end in Adam Fox. And then you go up front and you see the top 5 or 6 forwards that they have. Like, there's nothing that I think you look on paper and say, oh, the Rangers don't have it. Maybe you can point to, hey, what are they going to get from their bottom 6? When will some of these young guys step forward and have strong years? But I don't see, like, if you told me that the Rangers win the Metro this year, like, my head wouldn't fall off. I don't think there's that big of a gap between New York, Carolina, and New Jersey.
And hey, the Devils, they got high expectations. You know what? Timo Meier. What about the coaches early on this year? We've seen Timo Meier gets benched. Damon Severson, after he serves up a pizza in Columbus, he gets benched for the 3rd period. It's very early on, Frank, but you got a few coaches around the league saying, hey, fellas, wake up here. Let's go.
Don't mind it at all. I thought the Kent Johnson one was a little harsh. I thought for a kid that's still finding his way in the league, had 40 points last year. I know you didn't like his camp, but it's pretty embarrassing to have him sit out. It's a pretty strong message to send, heavy-handed, to sit out opening night. There's something about opening night, getting announced in front of the arena, your teammates. To take that away from a guy, I get and I like the accountability part, but I thought that was over the top. Severson, we're talking about being benched for a period. You can't make that play. It ends up right in the back of their net. I get it. I think there's probably or if there isn't, there should be a legitimate level of concern for Timo Meier. If you were to rate it on a 1 to 10 scale, and I'm not talking about 3 or 4 games, I'm talking about going back to his arrival in New Jersey and then signing a 70 point whatever $1 million contract. That's pretty alarming to me, at least, that he hasn't looked comfortable for 1 minute.
I would agree with you. I watched Timo Meier a lot the last few years in San Jose, and he was their best player on most nights by a large margin. He's a huge man, right? Big, strong, can shoot. He's not shooting the puck, Frank. He's got 4 shots in 3 games for New Jersey, right? He's got a really good shot. And yeah, it's odd how he hasn't fit in for whatever reason in New Jersey. But they've committed to him. So you know what? I get Lindy Ruff, a little bit of tough love at first, no problem. But then they might have to say, okay, how can we have some nurturing love here, maybe, to try to get something out of him? Because if he keeps struggling, well, you can't trade the guy, right? You got a lot of money invested in him, and he is a good player. Like, Timo Meier's not old enough that all of a sudden he's just falling off a cliff here.
Yeah,
there's a player
27.
there. Yeah, they got to figure out what's going on with Timo Meier, because he is way better. Like, Devil fans are probably like, what are you talking about? This guy sucks. He hasn't been very good. I'm telling you, go look at his stats. He's got a track record of being a really good player. And as Frank mentioned, he's 27. It's not like this guy's 33 and you're thinking, oh goodness, they signed one of those guys and it's year 3 of a 7-year deal, and all of a sudden the wheels have fallen off, because we've seen a lot of those. But that's not this guy. So they got to figure out what's wrong there, because you're right. He totally looks out of sorts.
So it is overreaction season. Okay. And I want to preface what I'm about to say with that. But I asked this question the other day to Tyler on Daily Faceoff Live, and that was, he said, look, I have Timo Meier as a lock for 40 goals this year with the talent that he's playing with. And my question was, is there any chance that we've overrated Timo Meier? He's never been a point per game player. He's hit 30 twice. And he's had some stretches where he's just been okay. And some of those are on bad teams, so it's really hard to manage, but you've watched a lot of Sharks hockey. Is there any chance that we've put him in a pantheon of players based on contract, based on trade return, based on all these things that maybe he just hasn't quite lived up to yet?
Well, even with New Jersey's struggles last year, he still had 40 goals combined between San Jose and New Jersey last year, right? Because he had 31.
You're right. Sorry. Yep.
Right. So he had 40 there. He had 30 a few other times. He's not a really great distributor of the puck, Frank, but they have Jack Hughes. So to me, on paper, the style of player, he's a power forward who can grind. He's an okay passer, but he's more of a shooter. And you know what? He played with guys like Logan Couture and Thomas Hertl, who I would argue that Jack Hughes, when it's all said and done, people are going to say, well, he's a more, electrifying player for sure. It probably already is now than those guys were. Well, Logan Couture in his peak years maybe can give you a run for it, but Hertl's not an overly quick player, and he had success there. Why hasn't he had none yet in New Jersey? It seems, although 9 goals in 21 games, like that's a 36 goal pace on a season, right? So it's not like he was awful in New Jersey.
No, but he was awful in the playoffs.
Yes, I would agree there. Yeah, the playoffs, he looked kind of just, lost a little bit at times. He did get rocked on that one hit, but I think it's a little early. Like, it's 24 games. He has 9 goals in 24 games. Not awful, but not what you'd expect, right? Because that's still a 30-goal pace. So I just think Timo Meier, in the game I watched this year, like, he's not shooting the puck. And he really wasn't in areas to shoot the puck, which is surprising, because Timo Meier's got an unreal release and can shoot the puck. But it's funny because he does like to carry the puck a little bit, Frank. And in New Jersey, like with Hertl and Couture, he's way quicker than them. So he was carrying the puck. He doesn't carry it a lot, and I wonder if that's a factor at all in New Jersey.
So he's the same age as Leon Draisaitl. He's 1 year, 2 years older than Philip Forsberg. I'm just trying to think of some other players that are in his salary range that where would you stack him up? He's got this season, he has the 38th highest AAV. So you're counting on him to be a top 50 player. Is he one?
It's a good question. So
I'd say probably not.
Yeah, like if I look at the last, I like to go kind of in 3 years, right? And so we can even start with this year if we want. And you look at where is he being over the last 3 years, right? He's more of a goal scorer than he is a point producing guy, right? So he's definitely
weird because most of his years he's had more assists than goals.
Yeah, but he's still, I look at him, I still think of him as more of a shooter, right? Like, and really, like the last 3 years, Frank, he's got 87 goals, 86 assists, right? So he is 29th in goals since the start of the 2021 season. So I think that's kind of who he is, right? His point total, obviously, at 173 is what puts him down the list a little bit. That puts him more in the category of around 57th, right? So I think it's a slow start in New Jersey, but I actually thought your question was going to be, do we overrate New Jersey? Because I said at the start there, they're the one team I felt like I was reading all this hype. Like people were saying New Jersey has a better chance to win cups in the next 5 years than Edmonton. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, I do think
that's crazy talk.
1 year of the Devils having success and they became the new poster child for the greatest team ever. And I do think it's pumped the brakes a bit on the Devils. I think they're a good team, but I'm not sold they're as good as some preseason prognosticators had.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I mean, I saw them as a losing the cup. Like I'm not saying I did. I read other people having them losing the cup final or win the cup.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought that was a little bit much. So
it's hard to make that jump.
Oh, it's massive. Like to
ask the that's how we started this conversation. Ask the Rangers.
Yeah. Oh man, like to go from a non-playoff team. Yeah, it's exciting. They made it, you know, they had a great year last year, right? They had a great season last year. There's no question. They went around, they get to the final 8. You're like, okay, but to do that every year is hard. And then to go from final 8 to final 4 to final 2, it just gets harder, man. Ask the Oilers, right? Like there's no guarantee here at all. And so that's the one team that I think that the expectations instantly on the Devils, I thought were really hard to achieve for that team because they were so high. And it's not the team's fault, but I just thought some people had them I think they're a playoff team and they could win a round, but I don't think they're like a lock to be even in the conference final, never mind in the Stanley Cup final.
So since they trashed us on social media, and fairly enough, we do need to give a little love to one of the undefeated teams, the New York Islanders.
Oh, Islander fans, they were spicy. I loved it. Yes, the Islanders early on, Frank, we mentioned it off the top. There's only, 4 teams left, I think, that haven't lost. The Vegas the champs are 4-0. The Avs are 3-0. And the Bruins and the Islanders are 2-0. It's 2 games. But yes, they are 2-0. And they have a grand total, Frank, though, of 4 goals. And what did I say? My concern isn't that their defense. It's can they score? And through 2 games, yes, they're undefeated, but they also are averaging 2 goals a game.
Yeah, I don't think you get any extra credit points for beating the Coyotes 1-0.
Yeah. So we'll see. But hey, Ilya Sorokin is exactly what we thought he would be. And we said at this, he could carry them to the playoffs because he's that good.
He only saw 14 shots last game.
Yeah, well, that helps too.
I mean, look, I'm not disparaging anyone. We need a little bit more. The NHL season's been 9 days. The Islanders have played twice.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And all at home, by the way. I guess this is making up for that road trip from hell a few years ago to start the season when their arena opened.
Yeah, that was brutal. But basically their season was over by the time they got home. It's terrible.
Remember Lou Lamoriello? What happened when you saw the schedule? He said, I had to go for a long walk.
It's a good line, Lou. It's a good line. Frank, before we need to end the show today, we have to tell people something that's launching very soon at dailyfaceoff.com, of course, where you can download the pod. We're going to have a new Survivor pool. It's brought to you by Wendy's and their new obsession, the very real barbecue bacon cheeseburger. While you obsess over your dream team, reward that dedication with Wendy's new obsession, the very real barbecue bacon cheeseburger. Now, here's what's cool about this, Frank, is that the winner of this is going to get $5,000 cash. $5,000. So what so it's almost as good as their new burger at Wendy's with the Applewood smoked bacon, crispy onions, and cheese melt over the fresh, never frozen Canadian beef. So you can get that at Wendy's. Go to Daily Faceoff. The contest is going to be open very soon, but you can look at all the rules. It's right there. And your chance to show that you know hockey, and you could win 5G. Woo. I like it. So
can't wait to play with you guys. I'll be in every week trying to survive in the survivor pool.
Yeah, well, I want to get it. The thing about survivor pools is all it takes is the one, like winning's hard, but you're like, I don't want to be out in the first week. Right. So,
yeah, but here's how this works, which is really cool, is it's every week is a new game. Yeah. And so you have to basically pick one thing that will happen that week and then have it come true. You'll see a bunch of different stats. It'll be so-and-so needs to score 2 goals, or so-and-so needs 4 shots, or this goalie needs 2 wins. And it's got to come true in that week or else you don't win. But what's cool about, so there's a weekly game, which if you win, you get prizes. And then the season long, you get points for winning that week or being successful that week, that then have a total survivor leader pool for the entire season long pot of $5,000. So there's lots of different ways to win, which is fun. If you kind of zone out or you go on vacation for a week or it's a holiday and you forgot to play, you can stay in the mix and still win that week, which is always fun.
Well, it's kind of good then, because sometimes you can just have one unlucky one in a survivor pool and you're out. So this way, even if you have one bad week or one, upset special that no one predicts, you're still
like the Eagles losing to the Jets.
Dude, what about the 49ers losing the Browns? And let's be real here. The New York Giants, can there be a worse team with clock management? Oh my God. How do you not get a playoff at the end of the first half? They should have won that game too. It was an amazing week in the NFL, which just shows you why any sport, like there's always upsets in the NHL. There's always going to be a few teams you go in and everyone's like, oh yeah, look at this team. Like they're a massive underdog. There's no chance. And they win. Happens all the time in the NHL. And I'm Frank, people are lucky that we weren't starting the survivor pool. Because if you would have said Alex Ovechkin, 4 shots in the first few games here, no one would have said ever that Ovi would go 2 straight games without a shot.
That would have crushed a lot of souls.
Oh, I still like that is an amazing statistic that he's never had 2 consecutive games without a shot on goal until this year.
Do you remember that one game a few years ago when he had 14 shots on net?
Yeah.
14. That's like a season total for some guys.
Well, the crazy part is, how does Ovi not get a shot on the power play? Right? Like that to me is the concern. Is goal scoring is one thing, but if you're not getting any shots, Frank, you're definitely getting no goals. So
do you remember there was a stretch of time I'm pretty sure like it had to be Dale Hunter, right? Who was it that took over? And then like they were like, oh, Ovi can't score with Dale Hunter.
Yeah. Well, Dale Hunter was there for a short period of time. Yeah. And I think he had 32 goals that year.
Yeah. And then that was it.
Yeah.
He went like 52, 46, 65, 56, 50, and then 32.
Yeah. Yeah. And some people were like, oh, it's done.
I got a little Wendy's survivor pool trivia for you guys. You mentioned Ovi with his 15-shot game back in 2015. Who's the only other player in the last 10 years to have 15 shots in a game?
Oh, God. David Pasternak.
Frank?
Cale Makar?
It was Austin Matthews on March 25th, 2023. Yeah. Nathan McKinnon's hit 14 twice in the last couple of seasons.
Oh, Pasternak, what's his highest?
I got to do a little search.
Not even a 10? The hell? It's terrible.
No, Pasternak doesn't even have an 11 actually in the last 10 years.
Dude, I have the worst memory when it comes to this stuff. Jay, I can't tell you how many games I've been to and I totally forget what happened in the game. like at the game, wrote about it, talked to people, did the whole, like, I don't know. I don't know how many games I've covered, but it's a lot. Has to be over 1,000. Yeah. And there's shit I have no idea about. Oh, did that happen that game? Oh, okay.
No. I read up on a lot, so I remember lots of good stats, but can't get. I like that one though. Now Austin Matthews, 15. I was trying to pick who's a guy who's a high volume shooter, and Pasternak led the league in shots last year, so that's why I picked him.
I was thinking it would be someone like one of the previous shot record holders was Ray Bourque, so I was like, oh, maybe it's Cale Makar.
Yeah, no. Yeah, when you got McKinnon and Rantanen, you're probably not shooting a lot per game in Colorado if you're the D-man. You're like, here, let's give it to these guys. Frankie, have a good weekend, my man. We will chat with you on Monday. Will the Islanders still be undefeated? Find out on Monday.
I'm sure they'll let us know.
Thank you for watching the DFO Rundown. Hit the subscribe button to never miss a show. And for more, visit dailyfaceoff.com.